Offseason grades for all 32 teams across the league has been handed out by ESPN. We'll take a look at the Raiders and the rest of the AFC West. The biggest move, the move that they liked, and the move that they disliked. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 11th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day by way of the YouTube page. And I'll tell you this, man. 20,000 subscriptions, over 20,000 subscribers to the YouTube page. That is a credit 100% to you, Raider Nation, and my man Ari. Without you guys, man, there is no YouTube page. So tip of the cap to both of you. You want to hit up Ari, you can. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. I'm on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, you know we've got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, we normally do. We'll close out the show hearing from you. A lot of really good calls, a lot of really good texts. We've been having really good conversations, I think, all week long. So we'll try to get as many in as possible as we close out the day, close out the show, close out the week, right? We want to finish off as strong as possible. So we'll hear from you coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll hear from ESPN. It's almost like we got a double dip at ESPN. We'll have ESPN in segment 2 and 1. But in 2, Adam Schefter and a cast of characters, plenty of people. I'll break that down as we head into segment number 2. Talked about Pete Carroll, the opportunity he has this year with the Raiders, the first season with the Silver and Black, what he's done throughout the course of his career. Talk about the challenges that the Raiders will face to get where they want to be in 2025. Also talk a little bit about Mike Vrabel and the Patriots, obviously as the week 1 opponent of the Silver and Black. Really good breakdown. I was really impressed when I heard what I heard on ESPN talking all things Raiders. So now you'll hear that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. That actually comes to you courtesy of NFL Live on ESPN. So really good stuff. Again, you'll hear that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes, and it has to do with offseason grades for all 32 teams. We're not going to focus on all 32 teams. We're just going to focus in on the AFC West. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of this show. That's Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So, ESPN.com, Seth Walder, ESPN analytics expert there for ESPN, puts out offseason grades for every team every year. It's fantastic. I always enjoy hearing what he's got to say or reading what he's got to say. I'm not huge on analytics, but I respect him. And I know that it's part of the game, and, you know, you take it with a grain of salt, just like Pro Football Focus. I don't, you know, it's not the end-all, be-all, but I like to use it as a reference point. So just because the analytics guy said it's something doesn't mean that it is. And just because, you know, I see something with my eyeball and doing the eye test doesn't mean that I'm right either. So I think that the blend of both is healthy. So I always am interested in what Seth Walder has to say when he drops his, you know, grades, his offseason grades for all 32 teams. Obviously, all I care about is the AFC West for this stage of the game. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. The Denver Broncos, they got the highest score in the AFC West. They're a team that a lot of folks have high hopes on. They're actually the favorites to win the AFC West if it's not going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people are banking on the Denver Broncos. And why is that? Mainly because of their defense. That was the heavy hitter in 2024. We've talked about it here on this show. As much as I gave Bo Nix credit for doing what he did his rookie year, a lot of people have said, hey, yeah, but the defense really is what led him to the playoffs, and I don't disagree with that, and I don't think Seth Walder does either. Biggest movie liked and movie didn't dislike is what he, or movie he disliked is what he breaks down here. So the biggest move, re-signing defensive tackle DJ Jones. Not a surprise, that's the move he liked as well. So biggest move and the one he liked, same thing. Re-signing defensive tackle DJ Jones, and as we talked about their defense, that makes a lot of sense. The move that he didn't like, not adding more at the wide receiver. So again, it looks like the Denver Broncos are going to try to get it done by way of the defense and hope that Bo Nix matures in year 2 and continues to develop. But Seth Walder wasn't a big fan of them not going out and making more moves at the wide receiver position, but they still got an A-, the highest grade dished out in the AFC West. The LA Chargers, who are also a playoff team in 2024, they got a B, a solid B from Seth Walder from ESPN. Biggest move, drafting running back Omarion Hampton in the first round. Obviously, that's a big deal, especially after we find out about Najee Harris having that 4th of July firework incident. Got a little something situation going on with his eye. He's supposed to be okay, but you just never know, right? You never know how those things are going to play out. Omarion Hampton, fantastic running back coming out of North Carolina. They got him in the first round, and we knew that that's what they wanted to do because, well, that's what Jim Harbaugh wants. He wants to run the ball, and run the ball some more. So that was the biggest move, according to Seth Walder, is drafting Omarion Hampton. The move that he liked, signing guard Mekhi Becton. That was a guy that we talked about here on the show that maybe the Raiders would be interested in him in free agency. The Chargers got him before the Raiders had an opportunity. And then the move that he didn't like, not adding more at edge rusher position. So there you go. So the Chargers get a solid B, especially for drafting Omarion Hampton. That was the big move. And then Mekhi Becton is obviously going to help Omarion Hampton have a successful year and also be protecting Justin Herbert by being that solid guard along that offensive line. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. They got a B-. Biggest move, trading guard Joe Thuney to the Bears for a 4th-round pick. The move that he liked the most, signing quarterback Gardner Minshew, and the move he disliked, signing offensive tackle Jalen Moore. It's funny. They trade a guard away, and you think, wait, hold on. Why were you break down your offensive line? Well, Joe Thuney wasn't very good, right? The Bears still gave a 4th-round pick for him, and then they went out and signed Jalen Moore. They're trying to make sure that Patrick Mahomes has as much protection as possible. I haven't liked the Chiefs' offensive line in a while. I do think that they take a step back. If there's going to be a team that dethrones them in the AFC West as far as division champs, I would love to see it this year. But who's it going to be? I really think it's a toss-up, right? I know the Raiders will have the harder challenge. They have the most lifting to do to try to get there. But I do feel like it's a toss-up, and the Chiefs will take a step back. So they got a B- according to Seth Walder from ESPN, which obviously leaves us with the Raiders. The Raiders got a solid B. Biggest move, trading for quarterback Gino Smith. We've been talking about Gino quite a bit this week. Big deal because, well, it allowed the Raiders to not get desperate and have to go and draft one of these quarterbacks early just because they needed a guy, right? Remember, I was going to be the desperate guy and say, hey, just trade up and go get Shedeur Sanders. They were smarter than me. Thank goodness that John Spytek is in charge and not me, right? They went out and got Gino Smith, a guy that Pete Carroll is very familiar with. He's a veteran. He had success. He threw for over 4,000 yards last year. Is he perfect? Is he elite? No, but folks are talking about him as a potential top 15, top 10 quarterback, and that's great, right? To the point where the Raiders actually have advantage at the quarterback position a few times this year where they really didn't have any the last year. So that was the biggest move, trading for Geno Smith. The move he liked the most, re-signing defensive tackle Adam Butler. Adam Butler stepped in for Christian Wilkins when he went down last year and earned a contract extension, got the 3-year deal from John Spytek, not only for what he did last year, but what he's going to do moving forward. Who knows what's going on with Christian Wilkins, right? He may have to do even more of the heavy lifting if Wilkins is not ready for training camp or even the start of the season. Plus, Adam Butler is just a guy that grinds it out. He's a veteran presence. He's a leader in the locker room. Really all-around good dude. So I think bringing him back was obviously a big deal. That was a move that Seth Walder liked. Now, Raider Nation, hold on to your hats. The move he disliked, drafting running back Ashton Jeanty at number 6. That was something we talked about quite a bit leading up to the draft, right? Do they draft him? Don't they draft him? Is the value there? Is the value not there, right? And ultimately we said, well, yeah, Ashton Jeanty makes the most sense, especially when we started hearing about other teams interested in him. It's like, oh, no, wait, hold on. The Raiders better go get him, right? So they did. We're excited about him. We've been talking about what he could potentially do year one, where he could end up as far as his ranking after his rookie season. But that was the move that Seth Walder didn't like. So, of course, I'm sure you want a better explanation. Don't worry, your boy is Johnny on the spot, right? I had Seth Walder on my radio show on Unnecessary Roughness, Raider Nation Radio 920 on Thursday. And, of course, I had to ask him about the controversial not liking the drafting of Ashton Jeanty at number 6. Drafting running back Ashton Jeanty at number 6. We debated a lot about Ashton Jeanty leading up to the draft. What were your overall thoughts on that selection? Why did you dislike it?
You know what? It is really hard to justify taking a running back that early in the draft. And the reality is that you're talking about one of the least important positions on the field. You're talking about a position that does not get paid. And so when you put those two things together, you say, well, you're taking a player that you're hoping becomes an elite player at a non-premium position. You're going to pay them market price right away, basically, right? Part of the value of drafting a player is that you get them on a cheap deal for their first 4 years, and they create this surplus value. That doesn't really exist when you draft a running back at number 6 overall, because you end up paying them independent of the fact that they're a running back. And then the last part of that is the opportunity cost. I think when you go through free agency and you think about, oh, wow, we would love an edge rusher. We would love, if we could only just have a left tackle. I'm not talking about the Raiders specifically, but just teams that need to. And you find, well, it's really hard to find those players at these premium positions in free agency. And there's good reason for that, because they're core building blocks of NFL teams. And the place that you can get those players is in the draft. And so when you take a running back at number 6 overall, you are passing up the opportunity to get those things, to take an edge rusher or a tackle or a wide receiver who will be the player that's not on the market for somebody else in years to come. And so all those things together mean that, plus our inability to, project these guys, right? Like, right. I think Genty is obviously a top-tier prospect, but there's no guarantees. That's true for other positions as well, of course. But you put all those things together, it's just so hard to justify the value of taking the player there. And that's a major asset for them. So that was the move that really brought their grade down. I was much higher on other parts of their offseason, and that to me is really kind of squandering a move. I know it's fun, right? Like, Ashton Genty, I mean, of course it's going to be fun to watch him. We just know the impact of running backs is mild.
So in 2024, the Raiders were 32nd when it came to the rushing game across the board, right in everything. Yards per game, attempts, everything. They were just awful. So Ashton Genty comes in and fills that void. What do you feel like he needs to do? What kind of season or even career does he need to have with the Raiders to justify that pick?
Yeah, and, I'm not saying they didn't need a running back.
Right.
They did, but it was also a good running back class. And so there were other opportunities to take a player that could fill that spot. He needs to be an elite player, and I think that he needs to, and he can do this, but and he needs to be able to contribute. That contribution, that production has to be there in the passing game as well. And I think it's a reasonable expectation that will all be the case. But you need to really hit. It's not just he essentially needs to exceed expectations in order to make this a justifiable pick.
Seth Walder, ESPN analytics expert. I know someone right now is rolling their eyes like, are you kidding me? The guy's an idiot. The guy's stupid. Look, he's talking about value, talking about contracts, talking about a deep running back draft, which is all stuff that we talked about. But, when you're 32nd across the board when it comes to rushing, as I said to Seth Walder, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And honestly, as I looked at the draft, the guys that were drafted following Ashton Genty, I really didn't see anybody that I thought was a better selection. I really didn't. He talked about different positions here, edge rusher here, offensive lineman here. And there's a case that could be made that maybe the Raiders could have gone out and got an offensive lineman, this, that, and the other. But, like Membu was available. Remember, we had so many conversations about him. He went number 7 overall. But I don't think it's one of those where I look at Membu and I'm like, oh, my gosh, the Raiders really missed out because they didn't get him. Even though I liked him, not that he could be a heck of a player, it wasn't something like that's going to haunt the Raiders forever because they went and got Ashton Genty, who could be a big-time playmaker that they obviously need, help out Gino Smith. I just think that, everyone looks at the running back position, but if Ashton Genty is the guy that we all think he's going to be, and he provides what Pete Carroll and company are hoping he's going to be, I think that'll all be forgotten. I don't think anyone's going to be worried about where he got selected, what number overall, and if the value was there. If the Raiders end up at some point getting into the playoffs, winning the division, and hoisting a Lombardi at some point, nobody's going to be talking about, oh, by the way, he got drafted number 6 overall. That value not really there. Again, for me, I said on yesterday's show, Genty, 17 games, 1,200 yards as far as the floor, 1,300 yards for the ceiling, 300 to 350 yards receiving. I think that he can do that. And the Raiders just were not good at rushing the ball. Under 80 yards per game in 2024. Dead last. They got to be much better in 2025. Obviously, the need for Ashton Genty was there. So I know that that's not something that everyone is getting excited about when they hear that, this guy doesn't like that move. I understand where he's coming from. Still think it was the right move for the silver and black. But they will have challenges in 2025. But they have a head coach in Pete Carroll that's been there, done that, and has had success, plenty of success in other stops in his first year. You'll hear about that coming up in segment number 2 with today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is Monarch Money. Have you ever wished managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Who doesn't want to do that, right? Who doesn't want to do that? And who has been in that position where you start to track your spending and realize, wait, what? I spent this on that? Yeah, you'll be surprised when you start actually really narrowing it down and figuring out where you spent the most of your money. You might even get embarrassed. I know every once in a while I am as well. So right now, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Promo code is LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Wanted to pass along this ESPN feature that I heard just the other day and saw the other day on NFL Live, and I'm so happy that I'm part of ESPN and I can reach out to the fine folks and, actually get the sound and be able to bring it to the table, because a lot of times you might miss it, especially with NFL Live, coming on early on the West Coast, right? Of course, everything's East Coast based coming out of Bristol, so a lot of times you might miss something. I caught this and thought it was fantastic and really wanted to bring it to the table and let you hear it. This is a great feature on head coach Pete Carroll. AFC West challenges, talks about Mike Vrabel and the Patriots just a little bit. And of course, that's who the Raiders play week 1. They travel to New England to take on the Patriots, now led by Mike Vrabel. So it starts off with Adam Schefter talking about Pete Carroll and the Raiders, Mike Vrabel and the Patriots, and how those two teams are going to square up week 1, and how it's better in the NFL when those guys are on the sideline. Interesting nuggets coming from Schefter. Check it out.
Not that the NFL ever needs any more storylines, but this season it has added ones. Head coaches who already have made history are now about to make more. After spending a year away from the NFL and as a professor at USC, Pete Carroll is back on the sidelines, teaching everyone a different lesson. Age doesn't come with limits.
These guys have really been accepting to a little bit of the craziness that we're all about.
On opening day this season, September 7th, Carroll will be 73 years and 357 days old, allowing him to pass Romeo Crennel as the oldest head coach in NFL history. Yes! Woo! We got it! Carroll now will be able to add that distinction to becoming the only head coach to lead multiple franchises to a playoff win in his first season with the franchise. He did it with the Patriots in 1997, the Seahawks in 2010, and now will aim to do the same with the Raiders in 2025.
It's about stability. It's about something that's proven.
The man has literally written books on leadership. He is a culture guy. He's a player's coach.
They're bringing the trophy home. Your Seahawks, Super Bowl 48 champions.
And speaking of coaching history, Mike Vrabel will become the first person ever to win 3 Super Bowls as a player with one franchise, only to become a head coach on the same team.
Back to throw, Brady fires, end zone, caught, touchdown, Mike Vrabel.
Vrabel takes over a Patriots team that has gone 4-13 in each of the past 2 seasons and is poised to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL.
Somebody asked me, are you worried about what went wrong last year? Why the would I care about what happened last year?
They'll be better, just as the Raiders will be better, because Carroll and Vrabel are back in charge. And just as teams usually are better when Carroll and Vrabel are patrolling the sidelines, so is the NFL.
There's ESPN's Adam Schefter from NFL Live on head coach Pete Carroll of the Raiders and Mike Vrabel of the Patriots. Those two teams will square up week 1. Raiders on the road taking on the Patriots. Interesting nugget what he said about Pete Carroll. Multiple franchises to the postseason in his first year with the organization, something we talked about quite a bit. Patriots in 97, Seahawks in 2010, and possibly with the Raiders in 2025. So now Lauren Rutledge, Damian Woody, Field Yates, Dan Graziano, Allen Robinson, all talking about the silver and black.
The Raiders have only made 2 playoff appearances since they lost to the Buccaneers in Super Bowl 37. That's tied for the fewest in the NFL over that span, along with the Browns. The Raiders' last playoff win was in 2002, which is the second longest active playoff win drought, only more recent than the Dolphins, whose last win came in 2000. So not the company you want to be in. D-Wood, how can Pete Carroll turn this Raiders team around?
Well, first of all, he's the youngest, oldest coach I've ever been around. His energy is infectious, but I think the biggest thing with Pete Carroll, culture builder. This man knows how to build coaches. Again, and from the video, he did it in New England. I was his draft, one of his number 1 draft picks.
Right.
He did it in Seattle. He's going to do it again in Las Vegas. And you already see the template of what Pete Carroll wants to do. He wants to play defense, and he wants to run the football. That's why you go out and you draft the Ashton Genty, high. I love that pick, a guy who has attitude and tremendous ability. You go out and trade for Gino Smith, a veteran quarterback. So much as far as a rebuild, you don't have to worry about the quarterback position. You got a veteran, a guy who really plays the position at a high level. So Pete Carroll is going to infuse this organization with energy, with competition, and they're going to hit the ground running. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, Laura, just a few years ago, the Raiders operated like a team that thought it had a chance to make a big splash in the AFC West. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo. They traded for Devontae Adams, sending the Packers their first and second round picks as part of that deal. And the reality was that team was nowhere close to good enough to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders this offseason have once again operated like a team that thinks it's primed to make a big step forward. And I'll tell you this, I don't think the competition is any less stiff. I think it's probably stiffer now in the AFC West between the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos. 3 teams that have legitimate contender aspirations. Of course, the Chiefs, the class of the league for the last half decade, even longer. So I think there's a reality here that the Raiders are doing a lot of things right, and I have a lot of trust in the people and the parties involved. The head coach and the quarterback specifically are dramatic upgrades. I just don't know exactly if it's good enough to compete this year for the playoffs. It might be something that is more of a 2 to 3 year build as opposed to a year 1. We're back playing meaningful football in January.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, this is the division where each of the other 3 teams made the playoffs last year. I mean, that you're behind the 8 ball if you're the Raiders to start. Pete Carroll's teams are always going to, I feel like he's one of those coaches, they're always going to win at least as many games as the talent on their roster dictates they should, and oftentimes more. But I just don't know how good this roster is, right? The offensive line, I think, still some major question marks. At depth on defense. In terms of the offensive line, I think they feel like they can mitigate that a little bit with a lot of 12 personnel. They have 2 very talented young tight ends, and obviously they expect a lot from the rookie running back. But I think to the point about Carroll and relationships, Gino Smith, not just a veteran quarterback, but a veteran quarterback that feels great affection for Pete Carroll, for believing in him and helping him revitalize his career. So you look at those relationships, those behind-the-scenes things, that's where he excels at a high level. I think it'll show this year, but I don't know if it shows enough to get them to be a playoff team.
What do you think, Alan? Do they have enough talent on this offense to be successful? And maybe we should define success. Like I think Raiders fans would be excited for any improvement that was noticeable. But what do you think when you look at their roster?
They do. I think Woody said it best. We know it's going to be a run-first operation. But even when you look at some of the other teams that Coach Carroll has coached for, those teams necessarily offensively weren't always the greatest or had the most star-studded names. I mean, he's coached the Kenneth Walkers of the world, the Marshawn Lynch's of the world, and now the Ashton Genty's of the world. So we know it's going to be a run-first operation, but he also has complementary pieces to the run game with Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. Those guys are very versatile, and they'll be able to be very active in the play-action game once you can get that run established. And also, not to mention, Ashton Genty also was a guy who caught a lot of passes in college as well. So he's also a receiver coming out the backfield. So I do think they have the weapons. And again, this team kind of reminds me a little bit of that Seattle Seahawks team when you had your Doug Baldwin, when you had your Russell Wilson. So I think the weapons that they have, I think they can get it done.
Man, I'm praying for Brock Bowers that he gets even more opportunity with a better quarterback.
Oh, my gosh.
He was so good already. By the way, this is going to make us all feel crazy, but the last time the Raiders won a playoff game, Ashton Genty wasn't even born yet.
Wow.
Maybe that's just mean. I'm sorry. I love you, Raiders fans. I didn't mean to do that to you.
How cool was that? How cool was that? I mean, I know it wasn't all glowing reviews from ESPN, but I thought that was really pretty interesting, man. And as you heard in between Schefter and Lauren Rutledge and Damian Woody and Field Yates, Dan Graziano and Allen Robinson, I mean, a whole cast of characters, as I said, right? You know, as you hear between that, multiple franchises to the postseason in his first year with the organization for Pete Carroll. Patriots in 97, Seahawks in 2010, and possibly the silver and black in 2025. Again, the AFC West is very, very difficult, and the Seahawks got there, and they didn't even have a above 500 record, right? Remember, they were in the playoffs 7-9, but they did get a playoff victory. That was the Beastquake. So it happened, and they did it with the Patriots as well. So a lot of folks have called in, texted in, tweeted at me and said, Q, I think you're underestimating what's going to happen year one. Pete Carroll, as much as I've given him credit for having the blueprint, having the proof of concept of what he can do, he also has the proof of concept that he can get a team to the playoffs in year one. So I would not rule it out at all. I thought that was an interesting nugget. I thought ESPN did a hell of a job breaking that on down. And again, big time feature on the Raiders. And that we all know doesn't happen that often on ESPN or other big national outlets, but it's happened more and more often. And I'm here for it. Sign me up. I could appreciate it. How are you feeling? Your calls and texts are going to be next. 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show hearing from you. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a text from Phil in the 626. Hey, Q. I'll be attending the home opener this year. I've been to a couple of home games in Vegas and noticed that we don't have any chants or a short song that fans can scream to apply pressure to the opponent on important third down plays or during a field goal. Any suggestions, Q? Also, we need you as a sideline reporter ASAP. Great work and stay safe. That's from Phil in the 626. I co-sign with the sideline reporter. I absolutely co-sign with the sideline reporter. And believe it or not, and this is just kind of taking you behind the scenes because you tugged on my heartstrings right there talking about the sideline reporter. I actually have a meeting this morning, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast, 6:30 a.m. with the executive vice president of ESPN. I got to go to his hotel, have breakfast with him, and he just wants to talk about, like my career and things I want to do. So trust and believe at the top of the list will be sideline reporter. So I'll let you know how that goes. As far as like a chant or a scream or something, what happens at the Raider games is what everyone says when it comes to the Raiders. Raiders, Raiders. And so that chant starts going, third and long, right? That starts going, or just yelling. I'll tell you what, it might not have anything official, but Raider Nation gets loud and proud when they need to. They have never been the problem in Allegiant, even though we know that there's a lot of visitors that come to town, a lot of visitors that are there at Allegiant. When it needs to be loud for the Raiders, it is definitely loud for the Raiders. So I don't think there's anything official, but, there's always something the Raider Nation could do because, well, Raider Nation brings that passion, and we love it. But, shout out to you for the sideline reporter, the tip of the cap to that. I definitely want to put that in my arsenal. Up next, got a call from Raider X. He's calling to talk about a few elements of the offense that he thinks will really affect what the Raiders do in 2025. Here's Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Not sure if I got cut off or got disconnected in my call, so I'll call back. Just wanted to talk about the offense in your latest episode in regards to Gino Smith. Just wanted to talk about the offense and some of the things I think that are going to kick off this year. Really excited about it. I think that we need to take into account not only Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, but most of all, Greg Olsen. And I think that for a few factors, I think Chip Kelly's really going to bring back and also really show the ability for, Zeus to maybe give us what we anticipated last year because of opening the alleys and doing a lot of different things with his offense. I think is going to open up a lot. And I also think that, coupled with Greg Olsen and Chip Kelly, I think you're going to see a great resurgence. But also what we thought was going to happen with Big Mike. I think Mike Mayer is going to really kick off this year. I think that is going to, because of the insertion of Gino Smith, it's going to make it just huge. Really, really huge and change the overall game because of the running game and opening it up. But last but not least is Aiden O'Connell. I think if you look at what Olsen did for all his previous visits and around the league, I think he's going to change Aiden O'Connell and make him really excel and really take that lead and have being a fine backup quarterback. I think we're going to see a big jump forward in that individual. Last but not least, just want to throw in there, kind of feel kind of weird because it seems like we flipped the script. For the last couple of years, we've been really excited about the defense. Not too excited about it this year. I think the offense is going to take a big leap. I'm really excited to see what the offense is going to bring. I think we're actually going to be very, very exciting. Defense, a lot of youth, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of things I'm crossing my fingers on, especially the health of our defensive line. Hopefully Kuntz comes back, and hopefully Christian Wilkinson comes back too. I'd like to get your thoughts. Raider X out.
Raider X, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. Chip Kelly, opening things in the run game will be necessary. Very necessary. We talked about it. Matter of fact, we talked about it throughout the course of the week. Obviously talked about it in segment number 1 when we're talking about, what Seth Walder said about him not liking the Ashton Genty selection. But running the ball, being able to run the ball is 100% necessity, 1,000% necessity. The big question I have is who's going to be the complementary piece to Ashton Genty? Raheem Mostert, most likely. But how does Zamir White fit in there? How does Sincere McCormick fit in there? Does Dylan Lobby play a role, or is he more of a special teams guy? Like there's some questions to be had about the running back room. And then Greg Olsen, as you pointed out, fantastic quarterback coach, well respected around the league. He's get hired multiple times by coaches that are really good. John Gruden multiple times, Sean McVay multiple times, Pete Carroll multiple times. Like he's a proven dude when it comes to being the quarterback coach. Not necessarily offensive coordinator, but a really good quarterback coach. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from STL Raider. STL Raider here regarding the quarterback advantage. I think your premise is a bit faulty, though fun. There are too many variables to pick one quarterback over another. I think it would be better if you compare which quarterback you'd trade straight up for Gino or not. There are still variables like age, etc., but you can at least compare quarterback to quarterback without all the other factors. My offensive line, etc. So let's go for a trade this year only. Mahomes twice, Herbert twice, Jaden Daniels, Hurts, maybe C.J. Stroud. That is 7 preferred games with other quarterbacks, 10 with Gino. Go Raiders. All right. I mean, that's cool. You can do it that way. I just think it's a tale of the tape. I think it's pretty simple. How many times have the Raiders gone into a game and you could say they have the better quarterback? That's all we're talking about. It's just the quarterback. How many times have you felt that way? That's all we're talking about. I know there's other variables. I get it. Football is the ultimate team sport, but we're just breaking it down when it comes to quarterbacks in general. How many times have they gone in there, especially since Derek Carr's been gone, and you felt like the better quarterback was on the sideline of the Raiders? That's all. So I get what you're saying, and I totally understand. But trades are more unrealistic than what I'm talking about. So thanks for the text, though. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Raider Russ. He's calling to talk about Gino Smith. Has some serious doubts about what he'll bring to the table in 2025 for the Raiders. Here's Raider Russ.
Hey, good morning, Q. This is Raider Russ calling today. I listen to your show every morning, and once again, it's almost that time of year again where, I usually get my hopes up, but, I want to know if I'm the only one, or if there's other people that feel out there that, Gino Smith is just another Band-Aid, that we're putting on the wound again. The guy hasn't done much in his career. He's 34 years old. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I just feel like by week 3, week 5, Raider Nation's going to be booing at him, and he's not going to be the Gino Smith that everybody thinks he's going to be, and making him seem like he's this elite quarterback. And to me, I mean, he's just an average quarterback, honestly. I've always seen him play, took a lot of interceptions, but, I mean, I'm not too happy, that we didn't go and, could have got Sanders in 3rd, 4th round, and I just can't believe we still passed that up. And yeah, I know Pete Carroll, they say his age, but honestly, I feel like just Gino Smith isn't going to be the guy this year, and that's just me keeping it real. That's how I feel. That's my opinion. I don't know how everybody feels or how you feel, but same thing with Aiden O'Connell. People, Aiden O'Connell, this and that, but yeah, that kid hasn't shown anything either. It's just like we have 2 average quarterbacks now, and at this point, it's just like my expectations are low, but it is what it is. Tell me what you think, you. Love the show. Go Raider Nation. season's almost here. Let's see how it goes. But that's just my opinion, my thoughts on Gino Smith. All right, Q. Thank you, man.
Raider Russ, thanks for the call. Gino Smith, he wasn't high on my list before they got him. I'm not going to lie. I'm similar to you. When I first heard rumblings that after Matt Stafford, they weren't able to land him, that they were turning their attention to Gino Smith, I thought, well, maybe. But, I like to do my due diligence. I like to talk to a lot of people. I like to, see things that I might have missed. And after doing that and hearing all the great reviews, and really we've been doing it all offseason long ever since the Raiders acquired Geno Smith, and the fact that they didn't get forced to have to go draft a quarterback that they didn't necessarily want, I feel a lot better about him. Now, he's not the long-term solution, like 4 or 5 years, but he could definitely play 2 or 3 years for the Raiders. So, I mean, maybe he's a better Band-Aid, right? Not necessarily the cheap Band-Aid that's gonna, just come apart and come off when you gets a little bit wet. Maybe you got the extra the extra strength Band-Aid. I don't know, however you want to call it. But what I will say, he threw for a lot of yards last year in Seattle, over 4,000 yards. But 21 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. That touchdown-interception ratio has got to be better. He's got to be closer to 30 and less than 10, as far as I'm concerned. And he was also sacked 50 times in Seattle. That can't happen. That also was a product of their offensive line. So hopefully the Raiders' offensive line is in a better position, because he can't be sacked 50 times. That was number 2 in the league last year, only behind Caleb Williams, who got sacked 68 times. So they can't have that. You're going to have no success if he's on his back. You're going to have no success if the offensive line can't open up holes for Ashton Genty. You won't. If that offensive line isn't where it needs to be, then none of this is going to matter. Nothing that we're talking about. So thanks so much for that call. We definitely appreciate you. And we'll close things out. One more call. Jamario from Columbus, Ohio. He's calling to talk about Geno Smith and his deep ball accuracy, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and what he envisions these guys doing. Here's Jamario from Columbus, Ohio.
Yo, what's up, Q? This is Jamario from Columbus, Ohio, out here calling, lifelong Raider fan. Love what you're doing. The offseason is always a time for some hype. And also being realistic. But listening to this previous day's podcast, man, one of the callers called in and was talking about Geno's deep ball accuracy. There was another caller talking about the love triangle between Gino Smith, Pete Carroll, and Chip Kelly. And if you think about those few things together real quick, just look at how you don't have to have an elite offensive line. If we just have a solid offensive line, and as you mentioned, they continue to get better throughout the season, Chip Kelly gets people open out in space. Because we have a top-tier running back in Ashton Genty, he can create. But they're also not going to be able, teams aren't going to be able to stack the box against us like they have in the past, so that makes it a little easier on the offensive line, getting people out in the space. Because now they have to respect that deep ball from Gino Smith. But not only that, we're talking about getting people open in space, getting them the ball. Thornton doesn't have to just always go deep. But he has Jameson Williams, J-Mo for the Lions, that tall, lanky, elite speed athlete. I remember watching him last year, so many different drag routes, little short slants towards the middle or even the outside. You get the ball in a speed guy's hands like that, guess what? They're gone. And now teams have to watch out not only for those things, but also Ashton Genty, also our Jacoby Myers and Jack Betch, all those other guys that are elite through there. And we haven't even mentioned Brock Bowers, who is an absolute matchup nightmare. So you start to look at those weapons. Geno Smith has that ability, and he's still decently mobile. I think some people are right that we may be being slept on, but I also get we have to be realistic. We got to see it all happen, but I'm definitely excited for what the Raiders can bring out this year. Love what you do again, Q Raider Nation. Raiders.
Jamario, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. Great breakdown, right? I like where you're going with the vision, the way you see the offense working for the Raiders. Geno's mobility, it's not, run around the yard and pick up a ton of yards. He's not going to run, for 1,000 yards in the season or anything like that, but he definitely can use his legs to his advantage. They're going to need it, I'm sure, at a certain part of time. Genty, no-brainer. The weapons you mentioned for sure, no-brainer. It really could work out well as long as Chip Kelly and Geno Smith are able to get on the same page. We know what Pete Carroll wants to do, so it's all about the marriage between Chip Kelly, Geno Smith, and understanding what Pete Carroll, how he wants to see this team go. And it's obviously going to be led by the ground game. If they can get that ground game going, everything you just rolled out can open up. The play action pass, everything. Deep ball, intermediate pass, everything could open up, but you got to get the ground game going. It's like a tree. It's like the tree trunk, right? Right? That's the big tree is right there, and everything else that you're talking about, everything else they can do are all the branches that are coming off the tree. The tree is the run game. Right? Everything is gonna come off of that tree, right? All the different branches all come off of the run game. It's as simple as that. Thanks so much for your call, my man. It's great to hear from you. We'll close things out with a text from Strange Raider in the Bay. What up, Q? Strange Raider from the Bay. I'm listening to the new Locked On Squad show. Love what you three are doing. Love the conversation. I just want to come out and say it right now. While we all know Pete Carroll had his Legion of Boom, I think I need to jump out and say it right now. The Raiders are going to have the Legion of Doom. It only makes sense. Also, Big Link, yourself, and Chantel are saying, don't chase big names. I fully agree. I think the Raiders have done that so many times. Unless it makes sense to sign a big name, I say we create our own big names. That's all I got. Thanks, Q. Let's go Raiders. Strange Raider in the Bay with the text right there. Thanks so much for the compliments on the new Locked On Raiders squad show. I think it's going really well as well. Lincoln Kennedy is always fantastic anytime I can catch up with him, even if it's not on a show, even if it's just on the sideline chopping it up with him. It is always great. Chantel Chand is doing a fantastic job. By the time this thing is over, I'll have her name down perfectly. Chantel Chand. Sometimes I say it like it's nothing. Other times I'm like, what is it again? What is it again? But either way, by the time it's all said and done, we'll be like the best of friends. She's been a guest on my radio show. Lincoln obviously has been a guest on my radio show multiple times, and I just think that it's going really smoothly. So looking forward to more of these shows. We'll be back on Monday, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. We'll do another one on Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time as well. As I mentioned all the time, if you're already a subscriber to this show or the YouTube page or a combination of the two, you're good to go. You don't have to do anything. You'll get the new Locked On Raider Squad show right there where you get this and your YouTube show. So we appreciate everything. Appreciate all the great feedback all week long. I think we've had some really good conversations. We're getting closer and closer and closer. 11 days from right now, the veterans will report to training camp. Oh, man. It seems like it's so far away, but it's not. It'll be here before you know it. So, Raider Nation, have a fantastic weekend. Be safe out there. And, of course, we'll collect a lot of news and notes over the weekend. We'll find out what else we could talk about. We'll get to more calls and texts. We'll do it all on Monday's show. And so, until then, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.